This week in the reading and social studies crossover, you all will be learning about the West region. Last week we learned about the Southwest region, which had many different natural resources and landmarks. To better help understand what goes on in the West region and what the West region is made of, I will help you better understand natural resources and some of the natural resources that we will be finding in the West region. Natural resources are materials that are made in the environment and they're not made by human. This means that natural resources also don't hurt the earth, unlike man-made resources that hurt the earth and the ozone. Natural resources are important and some things that we see in our everyday lives. One example of a natural resource is this piece of bark that I found outside my house. This can come from a tree. It can be made into wood chips like this seen before. It can be used for heat. It can be used for wood, cutting wood, or even construction with buildings and houses as well. The first natural resource that you guys will be learning about from the West region is oil, which is found underground and under the sea as well. Oil is most commonly used for gas, which many people know from, but it can also be used for the creation of plastics, making tar that goes onto pavements, the black pavements that we see in the ground that we walk on. It can also be used for heating. This isn't used much now because we have electricity, but in the old days, people used to use heat lamps where they would turn on the heat lamp and oil would fire that up to become the flame and give them heat. Oil is also used in asphalt, which is what we see on the roads when we're driving in a car or driving with our parents. Oil can be pumped out in two different ways. It can be man pumped out, which is pretty hard, but you basically are using a drill to drill that in. And it can also be used more commonly used as an oil drum or an oil rig. And to show you an example and better understand what an oil rig looks like, here is an oil rig from the water. Now these oil rigs dig into the water surface and extract oil, which can be used for the things that we stated before. Oil is a natural resource that we use, so that means it's renewable and we can continue to use it. However, sometimes oil can be bad and that causes oil prices to strike up. Oil can also be used and dug out from the ground, as seen in this picture. This isn't as common anymore, but can still be used. Many times you will see these oil drums if you happen to be in Texas or any of those southern states, but many of the times we'll see the water oil rigs, which can be found in Alaska, in the western region, and other places around the world. Oil is something that is very expensive and can be very expensive as well as valuable because so many people use it and it's used for so many different things. A good way to remember oil is by remembering the drills and the big drills that we see in the ocean and as well as on land, because this is how we get oil. With the COVID-19 right now, gas is at an all-time low, which means that we're getting lots of oil but don't need too much use for it because everyone's in lockdown, and that's why gas is so cheap, because we have such a surplus of oil. Another resource that's in the West, which is a big resource in the West due to all the forest, is timber, like this wood chip has made out before. Timber is a natural resource that is found in the forest and can be got from cutting down trees. Timber, unfortunately, is not a natural resource. Once you cut the tree down, that tree becomes dead. But we can take steps to make sure we are replanting the timber by planting seeds to get the trees. But timber can be used for a lot of good things, such as the furniture we sit on. Right here you can see the desk that I'm working out. This has come from timber as well. It can also be used in construction to build houses we live in. It can be made as simple as making paper, the paper that we write on. This, at one point, has been made from timber. So you can imagine a big tree being cut down, and this is what we can get out of it, is paper, as well as other things. To look at what kind of looks like, Here you can see timber extraction. So you have the bobcat, which picks up the trees after it's been cut down and extracts into timber. And although this isn't a renewable resource and can sometimes hurt the land because trees give out oxygen and cutting down trees can lose oxygen, it is still a natural resource because it's made from the earth and it's made in land or water and can be used for a lot of different things. Another natural resource in the West, which isn't as big anymore, are gold, silver, and copper, which has been mined out of the Rockies. Back in the early 1900s and the 1800s, many people came to the West, and it was often called the Wild Wild West because they would come to these mountains to dig out gold, mine, and copper in hopes of being rich. This caused a surplus of people to attend this place and almost caused a rivalry because people were so desperately in need for this gold to make money and make do for their family. So gold is something that we don't see a ton, but it's still a natural resource. Many people know what gold is from gold chains, gold nuggets, seen on TV, earrings. Gold has a lot of things, but it's more of a extravagant thing, more of a luxury item. Another thing that we'll see in the West is dams. Um, Dams are built to help the water flow in a certain area, and using that water flow can help store water, which we can use for energy by hydropower, which can also power places, and we can also use that for controlling water and irrigation. And irrigation is just the watering of our land, which is very important because we want to keep these natural resources to be living fruitfully and healthy, because without natural resources, we won't be able to exist on the world today. Um, to get a better look at a dam, here's what a dam looks like, which is actually the dam we learned about in the Southwest region, the Hoover Dam. And it's been harvesting hydroelectric power, which hydroelectric power is important because it's a natural power, which means it's not hurting the earth. So other things that many times you hear fossil fuels, which can hurt the earth because you burn fossil fuels and this goes into the ozone. Using hydroelectric power is important because you're using a natural resource like water to give energy to many different things. And using these natural resources for energy can help us to kind of reverse the roles that we're seeing from global warming and help keep our planet rich and beautiful. And the another thing is a lot of these resources that we've talked about are renewable, which is important because renewable means they can be used over and over, and we won't run out of it, which is important because this means that we can use natural resources over and over instead of having to use man-made resources and hurt our world. Natural resources are also important because they can just be good to see. I mean, you see these in everyday life. A natural resource may be the river, which has water by your house, or even the furniture that you sit on every day is natural resources. Natural resources are all around us and are very important to our overall living and overall health. Um, Hydropower, which is also what we'll see from natural resources, is water power, which can be used for a variety of different reasons. The West is a very important part of the world. It's also a very beautiful and fascinating part of the world, but it also is an important region because it has so many natural resources like oil, which can be used for gas, plastics, tar, heating, asphalt, and oil is a liquidy black substance that is pretty hard, sticky substance, but can be made into many different things. Timber, which we can come from trees and everyday natural things, which can be used for furniture, building houses, wood, paper, even something as simple as having a fire with your family outside and enjoying some s'mores. And then we also have gold, silver, and copper, which have been used, but we don't see as much as those because those are a luxury item. And another thing we see in the West are dams, which can be used for hydropower, which can power our different cities or different plants, different buildings. It can also be used for irrigation to help feed and water our earth. And dams are also important because they help with regulating the water. So instead of having just a big old waterfall or rapids water coming through, the dam manages the water and helps it to flow smoothly. But one problem with dams is that it can hurt wildlife because you are putting a man made thing into water, but it is also useful for both land and animals. And renewable resources are many times natural resources and things that we can use over and over again, which is important because it means we won't run out of this resource and we can use it for our energy and our daily lives.